Football is back, and that means it's time for the Dynasty Points Weekly Rookie Report. We're going to tell you what's happening in the world of rookies and Dynasty Fantasy Football. So sit tight, lock in. We have you covered. It's Dynasty Points, and it starts right now. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Dynasty Points. If you're new here, thanks for joining us. Grab a chair, sit back, relax. We're talking rookies after the first real wave of football for the NFL preseason week 1. There's so much news happening at all times, consistent updates. We're here to focus on the rookies, who's moving up, who's moving down, how to keep track of these things. What does some of this stuff actually mean? What to really watch for in the preseason, and how to let it affect or not affect your decision-making process. Joining me as always, Jakob Sanderson, Ryan Heath. We have a fun, jam-packed show for you guys today. Let's not waste any time and dive right in. We are starting off with probably one of the more bizarre stories so far of the preseason. The Cardinals were really set on giving Jeremiyah Love a real workload through news leading up to game 1. Now we have a high ankle sprain, and then I saw a very interesting quote, let's say, that said he won't require surgery, which I thought was a very interesting thing to kind of highlight and make a point of. I'll send it over to Jacob because I know you've just been writing up a storm about reactions. What's your initial thought here with Love? How are we approaching it moving forward?
Yeah, it's an interesting one where we kind of got this drip of news. It went from initially everybody watched that preseason game and, I think thought it was weird that Love got so many touches, but mostly thought he looked pretty great. And I think we're pretty excited about the role that he had, kind of even while the starters were there compared to Algier. And there was a lot of excitement. And then it kind of comes out late in that game. Oh, yeah, he hurt his ankle a little bit, but he could have kept playing. We just decided we'd seen enough. No big deal. And then all of a sudden he's a little bit more sore than we thought. I'm not going to say what kind of ankle sprain it was. Then it comes out it's a high ankle sprain. I'm probably not as panicked about this as most people are. I know some people are really dooming and glooming about this. So it's a high ankle sprain, which is on average a 3 to 4 week injury for running backs with a potential extra 2 to 3 weeks of performance docs once you return. He suffered this injury, I believe it was August 13th, if I'm correct in that, maybe August 14th. Anyway, so that gives him an entire month, just over 4 weeks before their first game. I would be legitimately very surprised if he was not active week 1. I think that it is entirely plausible that for 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, we're seeing a 10 to 20% snap share difference from what he probably would have had otherwise. And that by the time you get into October, we're more or less exactly as planned. Obviously, there's some degree of question exactly how high of a snap share he'll have anyways this year, where opinions may vary. But I remain pretty optimistic about Jeremiyah Love's rookie season. For Dynasty, I quite literally could not care less about, whether there's a slight reduction in his efficiency or workload for the first 2 weeks of his career. So I would be stunned if he actually has seen a meaningful Dynasty value decrease over this, or if you could get a deal for him that you couldn't have gotten a week ago. But even from a seasonal perspective, I've seen some people say he's completely off the board in the 3rd round. I think that's pretty nuts. For a 3rd overall pick running back, I can't come up with any other example of a running back with this level of draft capital who we weren't taking at any point in the top 3 rounds in a redraft setting, or any recent example of that who even would have failed, regardless of where they were actually selected. So I probably think people have been overreacting to this one slightly.
Yeah, I still have Jeremiyah Love ranked solidly in the middle of my 3rd round in my redraft rankings, which I just published a ton of updates to over on fantasypoints.com. Ryan Heath's 2026 fantasy football rankings and targets, been updating that periodically. And yeah, I had largely similar thoughts to what Jacob just laid out. in that kind of already, if you were drafting Love for anything in seasonal, you should have expected that early in the season, the workload might not be quite up to where it could be post-September, just because of how rookies are sometimes eased into the NFL. But I don't see a reason to think that that's going to linger beyond September unless there's like a really unfortunate re-aggravation of his ankle. Jeff Muller, our injury expert here at Fantasy Points, also does not seem that concerned about this impacting him beyond September. He has it at about a 25% production decline for up to a month after a running back returns to play from a high ankle sprain. That pretty much just lines up with how you should have been building Jeremiyah Love teams anyway. And yeah, I would echo that in Dynasty, this does not matter to me at all. The only, I guess, kind of caveat or reason I would say maybe you don't send the offers all out now is maybe you send the offers out after week 1 if he only gets 10 to 12 touches or something and people are more panicked then. But yeah, either way, I'm not really panicking or updating my opinion on Love in a negative direction. Pretty much no matter what happens short of a re-injury between now and October 1st.
I think a lot of the conversation in Dynasty is just going to be centered around, well, they were right to sign Algier to that money, and it's right for them not to cut James Conner if such and such player is already getting hurt to start his career. He's a running back. You can already kind of see that conversation and where it's going. I know we talked about the potential of them moving off one of the veteran running backs. Now with with the injury, does it make it less likely? It's going to be interesting to see how it works out, but I definitely largely agree. I think we're just reacting this heavily to something because it's really the first kind of big injury news, I guess, of our season, and seemed a little bit unnecessary, but I don't think Love is the type of player we even needed to see much of in the preseason anyway, so it just feels like maybe a little bit of a selfish play anyway to make sure he gets that many touches. But I mean, hey, we already got Adrian Peterson comparisons. I mean, you're still buying as much as possible. And I don't think that the buy low while he's hurt thing, we talked about that a lot, and we do talk about it a lot. It's not real. It's not a real thing. I think that might hit in like week 2 or week 3 if somebody's really, really feeling the need to move off. Speaking of injury news, boy, there's another story that just seems to get bigger and bigger and worse and worse. It's Jordyn Tyson. He just cannot catch a break at all. Let's talk Jordyn Tyson. Jacob, where do you want to start here?
Yeah, so, I mean, I just said with Jeremiyah Love, and you backed up the same perspective, which is that in dynasty leagues, it's very unlikely that you're going to get a meaningful injury discount at this point, and, maybe in redraft. Jordyn Tyson is a much scarier proposition, but for that reason, I think is a more realistic opportunity if you want to take advantage of it. And I think that there's a much wider range of viewpoints on exactly how far they would move Jordyn Tyson down based off of this. So for anyone who's not keeping up with the news, he suffered a hamstring injury at training camp. They did evaluation on that, and he's expected to now miss 2 months. That means probably a minimum of 4 to 5 weeks, more likely 6 weeks. I'll also note that the first 2 games after that first 6 weeks take place. One is at MetLife, and then one is in Europe, and that's followed by their bye week. So if I was to play conservatively, I would guess that the first time we see Tyson, or at least the first time we see Tyson in like a full snap share role this season, would be week 9. So after their first 7 games and then after the bye week. It's definitely a pretty substantial concern when you have a guy who's had all these different hamstring injuries, and I know they're saying it's not related. I mean, okay, I'm not like a doctor. I don't know which part of his hamstring was hurt before, and now it's a different part of the same hamstring. Obviously, when you have an injury history that he has, I think it is legitimately fair to say that this is a guy that has serious injury-related concerns. That doesn't mean, of course, that he's guaranteed to constantly keep getting injured. We have a history of guys who did have their careers largely go down this path where they just could never stay healthy. We also have counterexamples. Keenan Allen was a guy who early in his career looked like someone who might never stay healthy. He's currently going into his age 34 season and just signed a contract the other day. Obviously, he turned it around. Jonathan Brooks, Marshawn Lloyd, Christian Watson are all guys that everyone is really excited to draft right now who looked like they might be complete injury write-offs at various points in their career. So it's definitely possible. It's possible even that he has a fantastic second half to his rookie season. Remember, Odell Beckham Jr. missed, I think, the first 6 weeks of his rookie season and then went on to set about a gajillion records immediately after coming back onto the field. So everything is possible. Just comes down to the price. My personal dynasty rankings, I'm going to move him down like kind of from the top of my tier to the bottom of my tier. I don't expect to change him in tiers and how I rank him. I think that is a bit of a distinction of how I would rank him versus how I would try to engage in trade conversations for him. Basically, what I'm not advising people do is to try and trade him away right now, sight unseen, and unless you're getting like quite literally the price that you would have gotten for him in drafts. I just find it incredibly unlikely that he's going to like never play football again. I think we'll see him at some point on the field this season, and there will be a lot more excitement for people to go and buy him then if you want to sell than there is right now in the immediate aftermath of this injury. If you're trying to buy, I'm trying to target a little bit lower, largely because I expect there to be a wide range of panic in terms of how people are feeling about him. I don't know exactly what you could get for him or what you would have to trade for him in your league. So I currently have him at the top of my 1.25 base ones tier. I mentioned I'm going to move him down towards the bottom of that tier. If I look at guys in my late one tier, these are all guys that I personally would be comfortable if I had to in a 1-for-1 trade. In a perfect world, throw out an offer and see if you can get something added on top. Why not? It's a very wide range of outcomes in terms of what his value could be. But I would still have him quite solidly ahead of guys like Ladd McConkey, ahead of guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., Casey Concepcion, Brian Thomas. Those would be all guys that I think are legitimately very interesting, who I could see someone accepting in a trade. Like, I don't see the point of me coming on here and telling people to go and lowball for Jordyn Tyson by offering, I don't know, like Jaden Reed or Terry McLaurin. Like, I don't understand what kind of a service that provides. I don't think anyone's accepting that offer. But those names that I put out are like the high end of guys that if I had to, I'd be willing to trade 1-for-1, try and get access into a guy that I still think, if healthy, big if, is the most talented wide receiver in the class, and by all accounts was having a fantastically impressive training camp before, of course, suffering another injury setback.
I'm going to largely echo Jacob's sentiments on this one as well. In terms of the return timeline, I agree. There's a world where he's smashing in the second half of 2026. I definitely don't want to write that off. I think it makes sense to have a bigger reaction in redraft than it does in Dynasty, just because of the kind of immediacy of the entire first half of the season, kind of projecting differently for the Saints. But yeah, in Dynasty specifically, I am pretty happy to try to go out and get a Jordyn Tyson right now. I'll even say that probably your best chance of picking up Tyson is a league where somebody drafted him because he was a consensus top 3 wide receiver prospect, maybe that wasn't particularly invested in him in general. And they had designs on contending this year. I think you could swoop in, especially if you're a rebuilder or if your timeline is not quite as defined, you can swoop in with guys like T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle, A.J. Brown. These would be the types of trades that I think I would start trying to make, for like just sending away the older, more immediate producers if you are on a rebuilder, and picking up a Jordyn Tyson would be the way I would try to approach it first. I would agree with Jacob in terms of the names he listed, that if it came down to it, I am fine making those types of swaps. I would prefer Tyson still to guys like Emeka Puka. I would even still take Tyson ahead of a Makai Lemon right now, just to add a couple more young guys into the mix. That's where my ranking's going to be when I get to updating my dynasty rankings after I just finished updating my redraft rankings. That's where I'm going to have Tyson, is ahead of all those names. And I do think it's legitimately worth checking in your leagues right now to see if you can acquire him some. Yeah, you have to know what you're buying. There is definitely downside here, but more than likely we're going to see him on the field at some point in the second half of the year. And I tend to think he's going to look pretty good based on how high I was on him as a prospect, all injury stuff aside.
Yeah, he's the prototypical player that when a dynasty manager sees this kind of history, the torn ACL, MCL, PCL, that's extreme as it is. The collarbone, which has nothing to do with the legs, obviously. The sprained ankle and 3 separate strained hamstrings. Somebody's going to go, oh no, what did I do? I want out of this. This is a headache. I don't want to deal with this already. I'd rather take points on my roster. Or somebody is going to worry about being more, a little more liquid in terms of picks, right? If they're that type of dynasty manager just wants to flip for picks, the first sign of trouble. I think you guys have described it really well. This is also the type of news I would use to like flip some. Look, when the dynasty community really loves someone and picks someone, there's no stopping them. And Josh Downs is like the type of player that I would use, who's in his preseason hype up, ramp up period. He seems to be one of the guys. He's like one of the type of players that I would use to go and get somebody like Jordyn Tyson, right? Use some of that extremely good positive vibe stuff to go and get a really good prospect player with what we assume is a really bright future that's maybe a little bit down in terms of the news. So I don't think you're going to get really a discount, but I think it definitely, he's one of those players that there is an actual opportunity post. Because again, this injury history is going to scare a lot of people, and some way more extreme than others. I've already seen people willing to drop him just so far down rankings. I've seen him on overreaction videos, especially if your league mates are into the like TikTok content sphere. Jordyn Tyson was just sentenced to death, right? TikTok is the overreaction center for content. And so you just never know. You never know what content your league mates are consuming. So this can definitely scare them into an extreme type situation. So
yeah, I just want to, the last thing I wanted to stress when you get into the reaction versus overreaction is that like,
yes,
a reaction is fair, like more than fair. It's a legitimately big deal. He's going to miss probably half of his rookie season, guy that already has an injury history. But to me, where it'd be the overreaction is, like, I think that the industry, we're going to get into this when we talk about the vets on the live show in at least one case, but I think that the industry has a way of pricing some things in, and then when the thing that was already kind of priced in happens, then acting like it wasn't at all priced in the first place. And so what I mean by that with Tyson, obviously, is like, to me, part of the reason why he was not the consensus wide receiver 1 in the draft class, why he was like a little bit behind Tate in value, or even with him, why he was very close to Lemon in value, was a lot of concern about the injury history. Now, that's obviously already proven to be correct, the people that were concerned about the injury history. But I guess what I'm trying to stress with that is this is another piece of evidence that does necessitate a legitimate move down for Jordyn Tyson in all formats, especially redraft, where he's going to miss half the season. But it's not like we're taking a guy who had a completely clean bill of health and now we're injecting a bunch of injury questions. Like, to me, this was a guy who already had a lot of injury question marks kind of built up into his price. And then we're adding a little bit more on top of that, obviously, with the big one here. But I think we should keep in mind that some of this injury risk, to me, was already priced in with the profile.
Let's move to, and I love the note. I don't know which one of you guys wrote it. It just says Stribling is Randy Moss. And
yes,
depending on who you talk to, they might be more inclined to agree with you. He came out, and I have some points on this, but I want to let I want to let you, Jacob, kind of take first lead here. You have kind of converted more on the Stribling side of things. You and Ben Gretsch have talked about this at great length as well. And then we also got at 2:58, we're recording this at 3:41 per Matt Burrows. Mike Evans pulled up 3/4 of the way through today's practice with what Kyle Shanahan said was tightness. It doesn't appear to be contract related. Evan watched the rest of practice from the sideline. I thought the one part of that was like a very interesting, random, very note, but we're talking about a guy that the runway it's there.
I assume that the contract related part was with regards to Christian McCaffrey, because there was rumors that Christian McCaffrey's muscle tightness was a fake contract holdout, but then Mike Evans is also missing for muscle tightness, so we have a double muscle tightness swatch. Anyway, but Mike Evans just signed a contract, so I don't think his would be contract related.
I didn't know
in any case
McCaffrey thing.
Yeah, there were some rumors that like maybe McCaffrey wants an extension, and so he's faking muscle tightness, but then they came out and they were like, no, he actually has muscle tightness. Anyways, the Stribler, I mean, it's a great offseason to be DeJon Stribling. I mean, everything has gone his way. He Pearsall out for the year. They signed Debo, so maybe that's not great. But then Christian McCaffrey's been out with muscle tightness, as has seemingly every other running back on their roster been out. So Debo apparently is playing more running back than receiver right now at camp. Mike Evans has been missing time consistently. Ryan talks all the time. He makes a wise point about how like some injuries seem to make a big difference in people's ADP and others don't. Mike Evans just barely practiced for like 3 weeks. Nobody cares. ADP hasn't moved down at all. It's nothing to look at here. He's only 33. Anyways, no one cares. But yeah, it's a massive opportunity for DeJon Stribling to be like. I don't know if Mike Evans is not at full speed this season, and we know what's going on with George Kittle. Like, he could potentially be the number one passing game target, or at least the number two behind Christian McCaffrey early in the season. And that's a pretty incredible runway in an offense that's proven capable of kind of manufacturing targets for everyone. I still have a really hard time with the college profile. I'm gonna probably need to see like a sustained stretch of NFL games to ever get in, and not to get in, but like to get fully past that. I might need to see even more of that, like depending on how much he steams up in the offseason if he ends up having an amazing season. But as for short term, he looks like a pretty big rocket ship right now. And I think that the big difference in kind of his outlook now versus even when he was drafted is there's no doubt at this point that he's going to be out there on the field early on in the season for a lot of snaps. And we've seen Kyle Shanahan scheme up a lot of production to like receivers that I know suck. Kendrick Bourne, Richie James, Marquise Goodwin, etc. So, for a guy who, despite his college profile warts, like if due to the injuries and stuff around him and due to his impressive camp, he's just locked into a really high route share and to being a priority in the progression, he could absolutely have a pretty monstrous start to the season. It's pretty scary right now to be a person who's talked disrespectfully towards DeJon Stribling on the internet, because the fear is quite real.
So I pulled up my post-draft rookie rankings from early May during this conversation as Jacob was talking, because I remember Stribling was a guy we debated back and forth, but between ourselves and also just kind of with others in the industry more than maybe anybody else. I had ended up with him in the late second. He was my 23rd overall rookie. I had him ahead of Ted Hurst and Chris Brazzell and kind of all the day two guys I wasn't taking that seriously, but I had him well behind the day two guys I was taking somewhat seriously, the Jeremy Bernards, the Antonio Williamses. I think where we're standing here today, I had only hedged Stribling up that high in my rankings to begin with because of this exact outcome, where I don't care almost at all how good of a receiver you are. If Kyle Shanahan wants to use you, you are going to score fantasy points. As Jacob just rattled off a ton of names, that's been proven time and time again. It happened with Jawan Jennings. It has happened with so many of these guys, right? Shanahan can just pick a guy. If he wants to make you productive in the NFL and you are anywhere close to like the level of athlete that you need to be to get into the NFL, he's probably capable of doing it. So at this point where I'm standing, if I were to just compare him to all of the other rookies in this draft class, I think Stribling would rank 12 or 13 for me. He'd be up with a Denzel Boston, with a Jonah Coleman, in that kind of range where I was drafting those guys in the late first in my rookie drafts. That's about where I would have Stribling in relation to everybody else now, just because, yeah, the runway is potentially there. I do want to say the 49ers have had so many injuries. There's Demarcus Robinson was still resting. Christian Kirk has not really been on the field. Like, there is also an outcome where some of these kind of dusty veterans that no one is really excited about or wants to talk about get healthy, and they end up being bigger obstacles to Stribling on the depth chart. But yeah, even just on the 30 to 40% chance that he has a legit projectable role at some point in the first month of the season, I do think I would rather have him than, Antonio Williams, who sounds like he's completely buried right now. Elijah Sarratt, who also sounds like he's completely buried right now. All of these guys Stribling is just moving ahead of, in my estimation, based on new information.
Well, let's get hotter. I'll go to you first, Tom, because you haven't weighed in as much on Stribling. But the guy having the best camp right now, Stribling, versus the guy who was picked, I believe, 2 slots ahead of him in the NFL draft, who just got passed up by like a 30-year-old career special teamer in Isaiah Williams. Who would you rather have in Dynasty?
Oh, I think, man, I'd probably take Stribling based more off of just how Stribling was going. I was not drafting Omar Cooper. I think he's got legitimate alpha issues. He was one of those players that got double tapped in terms of another highly drafted offensive skill player go to the Jets, and with Sadiq as well, and he's got a legitimate alpha in Garrett Wilson, who's not 33 with hamstring problems. So I think just overall, even you look where Stribling's drafted at the 207 here in our 2026 rookie ADP in the Fantasy Points front office, which you can get 15% off right now with promo code FPFO. I am a company man. Sorry, excuse me. But I think you're already seeing not only like a great return on investment if you drafted him there, I think you'll continue to see a return on investment, because I think Omar Cooper is going to, if we're somehow still talking about rookie drafts, for sure sliding. And then I think overall value, you're going to see that flipped if it hasn't already. I mean, Ricky Pearsall got steamed up massively, and that took a clean runway for him. Look at how his season started last year. If Stribling somehow makes it to week 1 and he gets to put up what he did, say, in the preseason, week 1 of the regular season, you're already massively cashing in. If you're just a pure value hunter, let's say, and you're ready to flip that 207 for something significant, I think the runway is there for you to be able to do it. Beyond the production of the preseason game, I want to talk about just how Kyle Shanahan used Stribling, because I listened to Brett Whitefield and Joe Marino on First Read this morning, and I love this take. So I would definitely say go listen to that podcast when it drops. After you're done listening to this one, because we're going to drop it on the same day at the same time. But they even said the way Stribling got the opportunity to play early in the preseason, they used him all over. Inside, outside, motion, first read, really, really setting him up to get to play. Not something Shanahan does a lot with his rookie wide receivers, right? He likes to kind of bury them a little bit, very much restrict them, but I don't know if it's just, again, circumstance or whatever. He really gave him an opportunity. We just don't see that often. So that's what I'm more excited about than the stat line, but a lot of people in your dynasty leagues are going to care more about the stat line, let alone the body control. I mean, on the screen there, that back shoulder catch looked really impressive. I'll be honest with you. I was making the points per run block joke like everybody else was on Twitter with him. But like you said, the fear is very real. But I would definitely, again, want him over Cooper. Just simply, I wasn't drafting Omar Cooper to begin with.
I would not take him over Omar Cooper at this point. to me, I don't want these guys that I don't think have legitimate college profiles over any guys that I think do, based on the preseason news and the shifts. If Stribling actually gets on the field in week 1, 2, 3, 4, and it is moderately productive and or involved in the offense, then I may update. But yeah, for me, I will still take Cooper. I don't expect him to be that involved early in the season, to be clear, but I would rather the guy that was at least efficient pretty much throughout his college career on a per route basis, had the fairly strong total production, at least in his final season, with some target competition from Elijah Sarratt. I just much prefer that compared to a Stribling who has almost no college production profile to speak of. I can see this backfiring for sure, but I also think like every coach is different. Like Omar Cooper being behind a veteran that nobody cares about in early to mid-August is not like the most surprising thing ever. This was famously the case with Justin Jefferson for a while during preseason of his rookie year. It's been the case with a lot of players that have gone on to have successful careers. I'm not comparing Omar Cooper to Justin Jefferson. The profile is nowhere close to what Jefferson's was or anything like that. But to me, it was at least substantial enough to give him a little bit more cushion there, a little benefit of the doubt versus what the depth chart looks like in August.
Yeah, I'm sticking with Cooper too, but I just thought that was an interesting one. I mean, I found myself on the clock actually in I have a couple late starting rookie drafts, one of them being the league of record where I was sitting there at the 111, and Cooper fell to me, or at least fell relative to where he was going in most of rookie drafts back in May. And I was sitting there like thinking about, should I just take Stribling here? Like he's been getting a lot of hype. And I did ultimately go Cooper, but it was not a very obvious call for me when on the clock. So I wanted to survey and see what you guys thought.
Well, what's funny is we have the 113 rule in the league of record where you win the consolation bracket, you get a bonus untradeable pick. That's really just the 201, and Stribling went immediately. Like Billy didn't waste any time taking that pick there. So the value you're already seeing is getting closer, and you can see Omar Cooper is plummeting and Stribling is climbing rapidly already in our value history. So it's not far off, like I said, from that flipping, and I just like the potential. If you held, you could have cashed out on Pearsall this last year over the first 4 weeks. He was incredible at a massive value gain. I think Stribling has the runway, especially again. We're still talking about hamstring. I mean, like you mentioned, we've seen bad wide receivers become very much well used and big producers in that offense. I mean, Greg Jennings turned into a nothing burger, and he was at points being traded for late ones, right? So I just think you get insulation there, and I'm willing to admit that there's looking like there's a good chance that I was wrong on a lot of projection there with Stribling, and I'm willing to buy in on that. We have, obviously, again, a lot of rookie news. There's a wide receiver that I don't know how to gauge. I have no idea what to do with him. There's so much talk about him. Is he the next Puka Nacua? Is he just the next camp hype preseason clip Twitter darling? I don't know, but Cyrus Allen has to be discussed. I don't know what to do with him. He's probably the most requested player in the Fantasy Points Discord for us to talk about on this show, on every show, in every article. You can see the value spike. What are your guys' lay of the land? I don't think the wide receiver room in Kansas City is all that good, so there is kind of a run out, but there also was a time that I also liked Sky Moore, who was higher drafted than Cyrus Allen and ended up being a complete nothing burger as well. So that wide receiver room can be complicated to predict, but the dynasty community seems to be infatuated with Cyrus Allen. So I'd like to get the read of the room.
I understand it with Cyrus Allen. There's, of course, massive allure to just the thought that he could climb this depth chart, which is a weak depth chart overall, has a Rashee Rice at the top of it, who is a guy that we, at least on this program, have been kind of discussing as someone that is probably not as good as his fantasy point per game output for a couple of years now, as good in real life in terms of how stable of a real life receiver is he. So there's real intrigue there. I totally understand why people are excited about Cyrus Allen. What I would say, though, on Cyrus Allen, and this is going to kind of be my rule for any kind of later drafted player who was not really on my radar in terms of their college profile, I will always just take the random second round pick. I would sell Cyrus Allen for any 27 second right now. That is a deal I would not be surprised if you could just get done now. If you happen to have him on a roster or a taxi squad or what have you, that's what I would be sending out. That would be my price. The reason for that is it's just very rare that these kind of camp hype darlings that had little to no support prior to a training camp, it's very rare that they actually become worth a lot more than a round 2 pick at any point in their rookie seasons. Even Puka Nacua, obviously the massive exception to this, but aside from him, thinking back in previous seasons to the guys that kind of came out of nowhere to be the camp darlings, right? Last year, of course, Bill Krosky-Merritt. Yeah, you maybe at one point could have sold him for like a late one or something, but he never really got that much higher than being worth a second throughout most of his rookie season, right? Even though he became a legitimate player, was a part of their offense and all that. Romeo Doubs was Cyrus Allen 5+ years ago. That Doubs was the guy that we were inducting into the Hall of Fame during training camp that was going to have this massive role. And he did have a legitimate role for the Packers in his rookie season, but Romeo Doubs has never been worth more than a second in Dynasty Fantasy Football. Even Stephon Diggs, if memory serves, did not totally rocket ship in his rookie season. That took until year 2, if I'm not mistaken, for him to like really break out and show, oh yeah, this guy is worth a 1+ and he's like a legitimate wide receiver that we're going to be drafting in the top 24 for years to come. He flashed as a rookie. He had like kind of, the early hype, the early flashes that people were excited about. But even if you sold him for a 2, you had a longer runway to kind of to buy him back or to reevaluate once we actually saw him on an NFL football field. So that's like the more realistic range of outcomes on a Cyrus Allen to me is, yes, he could be an important player for the Chiefs this year. He could give them a skill set that they don't really have in their wide receiver room right now. But it does really matter to me that the only context in which anyone was discussing Cyrus Allen back in May was actually, I'm not interested in Jeff Caldwell despite him running a 4.3 whatever, because why didn't he outproduce Cyrus Allen last year? Was it like the only time that I really gave Cyrus Allen like legitimate thought, at least personally, prior to this camp. And that's just because the profile, the production really wasn't there. So I'm open to him becoming a legitimate NFL player. I'm open to him contributing to the Chiefs this year, but you are going to win the bet more often than not to sell these guys for 27 seconds in Dynasty.
I echo Ryan's sentiments. Like, barring a Puka Nacua-esque start to his rookie season, he's still going to be a guy that you can probably get for 2s, I suspect, into his rookie season, even if he has a half-decent start and you want to try and buy high at that point. And I would be pretty surprised if you ended up having like a FOMO level, this guy being worth a 1+. The odds against him on that are still very, very high. Are the odds looking better now that he'll be a really nice pick for guys who got him in like the 4th round of rookie drafts? Probably. But I'm pretty skeptical of this one from a profile perspective, from a draft capital perspective. Like, you're not even getting like we're Stribling, where, we can have suggestions about the profile, but he was a top 40 pick. And then you add on the fact that the Chiefs, like, yes, I do think there are very serious issues with this receiver group. But, like, from a role perspective, Rashee Rice is still going to be out there. He's still going to be targeted. Xavier Worthy is still 100% going to be out there. Travis Kelce is still 100% going to be out there. So I think that the odds that he makes himself unattainable within the first couple of weeks of the season are very, very, very long in terms of him just coming in and being like the number one target. So, I'm pretty darn skeptical of this one. I would not be sending out a 2. I would accept any 2 for him. If you still happen to have a late rookie draft and you're able to go and nab him there, if people are a little bit asleep at the wheel in terms of some of the camp hype, yeah, absolutely, feel free. And you should be excited for the shares that you have.
Is he someone you're trading away for point scorers like Diggs? That was one of the trades that popped up in the recent trade section with him. Is he someone you want to hang on to just in case if you did somehow draft for a 4th? You picked him up off. I don't know how many people actually drafted him. He's not in a lot of my draft databases, so I don't know. So are you cashing out for just any veteran points? I feel like a wide receiver like this is different than a Bill Krosky-Merrick, because running backs, when they hit it just like such a more valuable level than a wide receiver like Allen.
Yeah, Diggs is a good one to bring up. I mean, it would depend on what my team situation is, and not just, obviously it would depend on if I was contending, if I have any interest in Diggs. But beyond that, it would depend, like, how many people are starting in this league? Is it a start 11 or is it a start 9? What's my wide receiver depth? Am I really going to use Diggs? Because, like, if it's a start 9 league and I have a really good team, Diggs is useless. So I'd probably rather just have a lottery ticket. But start 11 league where Diggs could make a real impact as an every week flex guy, like, yeah, to me that would be totally a trade that I would do.
All right, let's dive into some kind of more. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, I completely buried the lead on one of the reasons we see camp hype like this is like you get a lot of either team accounts or fan accounts, and we get a lot of comments like Cyrus Allen is going to eventually be, in my humble opinion, their number 1 wide receiver. And like, that's enough to boost a player's stock massively to people that follow news like this and really want to be, let's say, ahead. So in terms of like, you're going to have opportunity to get out, you definitely have that right now if you are wanting to. It's part of just the regular camp hype media cycle, and kind of why it's important to stay maybe a little bit more level-headed. I mean, you look at some of the trades, it's like 28 second, 28 third, straight up, another third, bunched in for a Mike Evans or Mondre style trade here. You can pair him with DJ Moore, apparently, from August 13th and go and get a Chris Olave. Probably harder to do now, but it's definitely interesting to see what his range already, and we really haven't seen much of anything. So that's the perfect example of encapsulating what we're talking about in terms of reaction and overreaction to how a player is discussed in the preseason. Let's talk about some more miscellaneous quick hitters. I rarely talk positively about Baltimore Ravens players. I'm very nervous to do so, but I want to talk about one specifically, and it's now my most rostered player in Dynasty. He is my most rostered player. I think I'm up to 30% now. It's Matthew Hibner. I thought he looked fantastic, and I also think it is a testament to the system being run in Baltimore with Doyle. This wheel route that he ran really reminded me of early career Mark Andrews. You have the backside play action here. Well, it was a little late, but this has me excited for if and or when he replaces Mark Andrews, which I think will maybe not happen this year, but there is a possibility of it happening sooner than later. The usage also gets me excited for Mark Andrews, given how the tight end position was used here. We saw the screen, the bootleg, a lot of stuff that Baltimore really didn't do that much over the last few years, but he looked more athletic than I thought. He had better hands than I thought. at least in this game. He could find spots in zone a little bit better than I was expecting for a rookie, but really the wheel route here really sells it for me. Upside here big if anything were to happen to Andrews, in my opinion. I don't think Durham Smythe is really running a lot of these type routes, and we know Andrews is a little older, looks a little slower. So I like Stribling. He's probably my favorite late upside target tight end. And again, I don't really talk positively about a lot. Would have liked to have seen him go to the outside there personally, but turn up field, get the yards. I get it. But I don't really talk positively about a lot of Ravens, but Hibner has me legitimately excited, and it does remind me a lot of the Hurst and Andrews kind of tight end, where Hibner wasn't even the first tight end drafted by Baltimore, I believe, in this draft. I don't know. I'm excited about Hibner and the possibility of him getting real opportunity should anything happen to Mark Andrews, who, again, getting older, kind of running with a piano on his back. It was refreshing.
There's not much here with the profile for me. I mean, the athleticism is great. The production is pretty non-existent. But like as a blind bet on athleticism and opportunity, sure, totally fine. Especially at the price of like free or late round rookie draft pick. Definitively interesting.
I was still picking him up off waivers, just clear. Like he's still not. And this is after the Ravens preseason game against the Eagles. Like that was, again, pretty positive. That's why I said I was a little more surprised with how fluent he was with the ball and being able to find spots and locations and settling in zone and things like that are fairly difficult for rookie tight ends to kind of learn and adapt. In line as well. I just a lot to like there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm just happy to let you be happy about your Ravens for once, Tom. And in one small little microcosm of a take, that's I'm not gonna rain on the parade whatsoever. But
is this the first one in like 3 years, maybe? Is that?
It's been a minute. Yeah,
I think it might be. Okay, well, let me pivot that immediately to something negative. Elijah Sarratt was somebody that I was like convinced was going to be the next guy. Didn't really play until later in the game. What I care about more is the fumble. The fumble, which is not, it's not going to sit well. You know that, but where that's paired is all of the stuff about Jacoby Lane all camp I was dismissing as like Miles Boykin level hype, because the Ravens do seem to be obsessed with like the big body wingspan type wide receivers. Jacoby Lane played really well. He played really well. So Sarratt was the second round pick in rookie ADP. Lane was the third round pick, and I'm looking at how many times I drafted Sarratt compared to Lane, and I'm wondering, because again, the Ravens are going to have to pass the ball a lot more for anyone to matter, and they might just do it. But where are you guys at with the kind of young one, the youngins, if you would, in the Ravens receiver room?
I'm honestly just kind of confused more than anything, because I feel like I've been rug pulled throughout the summer. Like in minicamp, the Elijah Sarratt headlines were overwhelmingly positive, and I was like, okay, maybe I wasn't a total dunce for ranking the spreadsheet darling that fell to day 3 in the mid-second round of rookie drafts again this year. Maybe I didn't fall for it again. But now I'm a little concerned I did just #fall for it again. With Lane clearly playing ahead of Sarratt is what's a little more concerning. But I don't know. Ultimately, it's a little hard to give kind of actionable dynasty advice on guys like this, where we are very much we have all had our rookie drafts. Our bags are packed. We're just like bag holding now and kind of watching basically. But no, I'm not feeling that good about the Elijah Sarratt bags at this point. But who knows? Things can change. It's one preseason game. It could be entirely different literally next week. I'm not going to massively overreact right now or declare Sarratt dead or anything, but it's definitely not encouraging after an encouraging start to the summer.
Yeah, part of the context on that is he apparently suffered a hamstring injury at the very end of OTAs, and so then was kind of slow coming back. There was some reporting that he didn't look quite as good at the start of camp as he did in OTAs. This is Sarratt, of course. From a dynasty perspective, I'm going to remain a little bit more stubborn on this one. I think that it's not that surprising that Lane is playing ahead of Sarratt right now. He was the higher drafted guy. He's been the healthier guy. He's had a fantastic camp by all reports, and he looked really strong in the preseason game as well. I mean, his best trait is ball winning, and that is a trait that tends to do very, very well at training camp. You know, I've made like very big moves in my seasonal league rankings, like especially my best ball rankings. Like I've moved Lane way up. He's clearly the guy that's going to get the opportunity right away. Trying to zoom out from a dynasty perspective, I'm still being a little bit more stubborn with the profile aspects here, where I do think that there's some pretty big limitations to Lane's overall game. I think there's a lot of opportunity for things to be pretty fluid throughout the season. And I think especially with Sarratt, like the OTA stuff was great. The injury stunted his progress a little bit. And the fumble, like Tom raised the fumble, that's obviously something he's got to get sorted. I do still care, like from a rookie dynasty perspective, how guys look. And like Sarratt was still very productive. He was eating a ton of targets, catching a lot of balls. So outside of the fumble, and outside of like when he was playing in the game, I didn't think it was all negative. And from a dynasty perspective, for a day 3 rookie to be playing deep into the preseason in week 1, I don't personally view that as a death knell. So I definitely expect Lane to be the guy that starts the season. He'll have the first opportunity to stake a claim over the spot and has looked really great so far. But I'm not burying Sarratt just yet.
Yeah. To be clear, I'm not like burying him either. I'll allow like the Striblings to move ahead of him, but I'm not going out there and saying I need to move Sarratt down, like significantly down my rookie rankings or anything like that.
They do still both have a Rashad Bateman problem for this year anyway, so I think you're right. Not a lot to overreact to, but there's definitely some positives there to feel good about as a Ravens fan. Finally, something to feel good about there. Maybe we won't really be a complete loss if Flowers does miss any time, which I hope he doesn't. Some other big things to kind of talk about. Chris Bell off the NFI. So shout out, I don't know, stem cells or just Wolverine-esque healing abilities. Kind of insane that he's off the NFI, if I'm being honest. And Caleb Douglas looked also really good. On top of Malik Willis looked
okay, this is the number one. This is the number one thing I don't care about in the preseason. Is Malik Willis looking good on a sample of like 9 plays on a scripted drive against preseason players? Like, we already knew that if you hold his dropbacks to like 18 per game, that he could look really efficient. He did that. Like he did that in Green Bay, right? And it was really impressive. And like that's why he got the starting job. Is that in a limited scripted sample, he's a very talented thrower of the football, and he's really mobile.
He's like 30%
and you can make him look
more
good
efficient,
in the right structure,
yeah,
right?
30% more efficient by EPA per dropback than Lamar Jackson the last couple of years.
Right.
Willis,
so I was really surprised that he did what he did in Green Bay after watching him in Tennessee. But like now that I've seen him do that in Green Bay, I was 0% surprised that he was able to do that for one scripted drive against preseason defense in this situation. My question remains, can this guy actually do this in a real dropback situation over the course of a full game? I mean, it's impossible for a preseason drive to answer that question for me. So
I know. I'm more saying when I say he looked good, I was more impressed with the on time, back foot, got to his first read, not immediately. He wasn't staring him down. Like a lot of questions on if he can even process without LaFleur around. When I say look good, those are the things I'm looking for more than the efficiency and things. It's little subtle things, back foot, plant and go, looking off safeties, etc. Just things that he wasn't really regarded as doing a lot, let's say at college, and then it was, well, LaFleur's not coming with him. Is that going to sustain? It looked like that's at least been corrected for now. When I say looks good, we're here to talk about the rookies. Caleb Douglas played every snap with the ones, some big plays here. And again, Bell off the NFI. Bell was a big question mark for us. We got a lot of comments about him when we were doing our rookie rankings and rookie tiers. We're a little too low for some people. What to expect? Who's your kind of target here? Did anything you saw this weekend change your mind on someone like Caleb Douglas, who of all the Miami Dolphins wide receivers, seem to get pushed down the most for reasons I can't fully explain.
I remain highest on Bell among all of the Dolphins rookie wide receivers. I remain much lower on Bell going back to the draft process and to today. I remain much lower on him than I think most were in the industry. I had him ranked as just a fringe top 30 rookie draft pick. The reason for that is regardless of when he kind of comes back, it's great. It's great he's off NFI and all of that. I just find it exceedingly unlikely that any rookie wide receiver on the Dolphins this year makes enough of an impression to the point where they aren't going to draft a wide receiver early next year if given the opportunity. Because of these like drop back limitations that we're talking about with Malik Willis and just what the passing game is likely to be this season, it's just very hard for me to imagine a world where everybody is keeping a candle lit for Chris Bell come next January. I don't think he's going to be super top of mind outside of like gets on the field very early and immediately makes an impression. But I didn't even really see that in the profile for him from a production standpoint. I thought that the one tweet from probably his agent about how he could have gone in round one if not for his ACL injury was like completely holding up his draft stock for a long time and completely holding up his dynasty stock for a long time. And I just didn't see that whatsoever relative to, I thought he was like a pretty average to sub-mediocre day 2 wide receiver profile, which is not a compliment. So yeah, I just haven't really changed my opinion much at all on this Dolphins rookie wide receiver group, which is largely that I don't care and that I don't think anyone's going to care 8 months from now.
Yeah, some people in the film world really liked Chris Bell. Not my style of profile, but I think that his prospect profile earned a lot of goodwill based on him being injured, because I think that there was the view on him. The common narrative was this is a day 1 level prospect who fell to day 2 based on injury. When I think if he hadn't got injured, either he wouldn't have gone on day 1 at all, or he was a late first, early second round pick, and then he's the one who really gets nitpicked a lot, and he kind of becomes like the analytics versus film or analytics versus athleticism or whatever guy this year. Like, I saw more people nitpicking Denzel Boston's profile, for instance, than Chris Bell's, and there are some nits there, but Denzel Boston's profile is miles better than Bell's was from a data perspective. So, I remain pretty largely disinterested in the Miami Dolphins passing game, but I definitely think Bell is the highest upside guy. Caleb Douglas has been my favorite of the group to pick in best ball, just because like he's a rookie receiver who seems like he's going to start from week 1, and so who knows? And given how poor all the other receivers are on this team, I will note the catch he made was amazing. He might need to work on the sideline awareness. There was the incompletion where there was no one within 15 yards of him. That was Jonathan Mingo-esque there. So that's something to clean up.
He didn't jump and land out of bounds though. So I mean, there's maybe not as bad. But you're right. Definitely some question marks there. But if we noted it, I think people might have been upset. Let's talk about Emmitt Johnson, because there are some people that would say he's not necessarily a pass catcher, not really someone with any upsides and anything happen, but like, I don't believe in Rashard Smith. I don't see a veteran coming through the door the way we have kind of in the past. Let's talk about the RB2 here in Kansas City, because I feel like that is a legitimate upside type play with Walker's tendency to miss time. Some people are going to want to hammer a guy like DeMarcado. I'm okay not rostering DeMarcado ever again in Dynasty. So I've seen it. I've been there. I'm good. Let's talk about Emmitt Johnson, who some people are genuinely quite excited about with the potential of being RB2 in Kansas City.
Yeah, the TLDR of this for me is I think Emmitt Johnson probably is the RB2 in Kansas City this year, has been my recent takeaway. Of course, you were drafting him in rookie drafts with that hope. I had him ranked toward the end of round 2 of rookie drafts with that hope. He was a prospect I liked relative to what the NFL seemed to think about him. I thought he had a legitimate 3-down skill set, or at least that he could fit in on passing downs. Maybe he could be good enough for RB2 duties in terms of being on the ground and just kind of having to take over a workload if there were injuries ahead of him. That seems like the exact role that he's headed for right now, because for those that don't remember the Chiefs backfield last year, Brashard Smith was on the team. They suffered injuries in the backfield, and they did basically everything they possibly could to prevent Brashard Smith from playing an actual running back type of role. He did have like his design screens, and there were a few weeks where, he was a little bit involved as a pass catcher, but this is not like a running back sized player, or at least that's like not how the team seems to view him. So if it's him and Emmitt Johnson who were playing first in the preseason with Ken Walker sitting, if it's Brashard Smith and Emmitt Johnson, that to me says Emmitt Johnson is the RB2, that he is the handcuff to Walker. And we had Amari DiMercato, playing much later into the game. DiMercato was really the only guy they went out and signed this offseason. Seemed like the thought there was probably that he could help out in pass protection and kind of like the third down back type of role. But if Emmitt's ahead of him there, then I don't really see the point of Amari DiMercato on the roster, and maybe the Chiefs don't either. So I was legitimately encouraged by the Emmitt Johnson usage, and I do think he is more than likely Ken Walker's handcuff to conclude.
Yeah, I was pumped. He was one of the top takeaways for me from preseason. I mean, more so like in a best ball seasonal grind, because he's been going at the very end of drafts, and I've been clicking him a lot under the hopes that he would emerge as the clear RB2. I wasn't even really expecting he would be the immediate RB2 in week 1. Now that is my expectation. After this preseason game where he was really effective, Amari DiMercato also was the 4th running back through drills. Johnson was clearly the first second behind Kenneth Walker, but first of the backup competitors through drills at practice. I think at this point, DiMercato is probably going to get cut, actually, which would be really, really exciting for not just Johnson, but I think also Walker and his potential to lock down some more passing down work. So I think Johnson's really interesting. I love him in this role that he's in. I was concerned earlier, like pre-draft, that he was getting a bit overrated for a guy that I just don't know has like the dynamism to be a true NFL starting running back. But as a backup with a lot of contingent upside, he's exactly what I want. Super fantasy friendly profile, can handle a ton of volume, can handle the pass game work. He's a really, really fun guy to me to have on your bench. And especially Ken Walker. I love Ken Walker, but he loves getting hurt. So if you take 2-4 weeks for his kind of yearly minor injury, I don't see why Emmitt Johnson couldn't come in and score 16 points per game for 2 or 3 week stretch if Ken Walker suffers a minor injury at some point this year.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And Chris Wecht absolutely killing the preseason Twitter thread. Must follow. This is phenomenal. He puts out great information with Brashard Smith and Emmitt Johnson. A lot of it highlighting everything we're talking about here. So that's a lot of news and notes, camps, rookies. The last one I kind of want to end off on today, because we have a lot more to go here in the preseason, but a lot of Eli Stowers talk, like a lot, like a lot
Why?
of it being very concerning. So
let's talk about the twink.
Oh no.
Is this just going to be victory laps? I feel like overall Jacob was one of the lowest people in the industry on Eli Stowers.
No, we can't. No. I will not be victory lapping on August 18th. No. We got a long way to go. We got a long way to go.
Yeah, I wanted to give you the opportunity because there's blood in the water right now on Eli Stowers.
No. I can't be like simultaneously tilted by all the people victory lapping, guys who look good that I said were bad, or look bad that I said were good on August 18th. And then when we get to one that I get the chance to victory lap, be like, no, like we can call it on August 18th. His career is already decided. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be consistent. But I don't know. What's the update? Guy who is 255th in run blocking snaps is not ready to play inline tight end as a rookie. Like, how could we have seen this coming? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that basically is the update. And it's consistent with what we've been hearing out of training camp, which is that doesn't sound like Stowers is going to be super involved in the offense early on. Like, he's not been playing with the first team, really. I think most of the people around the Eagles are just kind of unsure how he fits into the offense right now. And that does make some sense based on kind of his profile and everything we talked about with him. And this is despite Devontae Smith, Mekhi Lemon dealing with hamstring injuries, missing time over the past couple of weeks too. So yeah, I don't know. It's looking, I don't know. Everything's turning up great for Dontavian Wicks. Remember him? And not so much for Eli Stowers right now. I don't know. I had him ranked as my 13th rookie. When I went through and did my tight end rankings, I was tempted to move him down behind a couple of other like kind of theoretical young guys. I ultimately didn't yet, just because this was what I would have expected from the profile too, is a kind of slower start to his NFL career, where maybe there comes a time, even during his rookie season, that he is able to be showcased for whatever reason, because of injuries, because of game planning from the Eagles for a period. Like, we can absolutely get the Aronde Gadsden magical month out of Eli Stowers at some point. So I'm not going to super punish him in rankings and value right now, but yeah, it's sort of what we were concerned about, I'd say. Don't want to double count it.
I think that the if you were an Eli Stowers bull, I mean, if you were really thinking he would make a massive impact without a Dallas Goedert injury this year, I just think that was off base. But that doesn't mean that he won't have a positive career. The ceiling remains high for him as a receiving option. There's contingent value potentially this year if he develops as a blocker. You know, this is a guy that maybe we go into next year. We've seen a lot of rookies that have this arc of like, they have a lot of value and then they decline in value throughout their season, but then the offseason breaks, right, and they go back up, right? You think of like a Bashal Tutin, Matthew Golden, two examples of guys who had a lot of high hopes this time last year. That didn't come to fruition in the rookie season, but then the decks got cleared for them and they have another opportunity to cash in on that hope this season. I think that's probably the most likely scenario for Eli Stowers, is that people will be once again hopeful this time next year. But I'm not expecting a ton from him, barring a significant Dallas Goedert injury in year.
Yeah, he's the type of player you buy in like week 4 if he still hasn't done much, or week 6 and send away some aging points, Jake Ferguson, let's say, and hope that you get to cash in next year on a you know, by ADP standards and rookie drafts, a late round pick, which is why I think there's so much. When you get really kind of overly negative news on a player like we are with Stowers, that is really driving the ship in the preseason. People react to that, I feel like, more than glowing reviews. At least I feel like, in my experience, people tend to really, really, really want to overreact in terms of their dynasty rosters to negative, even more than positive. That's going to do it for the rookies. We're going to do this every week, so get ready to get locked in. We're going to keep you up to date with what we're feeling on the rookies, who's moving, who's not, what are we excited for, what's not, what's real, and what's not. So I'm excited for that. Thanks for watching Dynasty Points, and if you missed it, go back and watch the live. We're talking some veteran news, some injury updates, playing 5 for 5. A lot of stuff happening over there in the live. Go back and check that out as well. For Jakob Sanderson, for Ryan Heath, I'm Thomas Tipple. This is Dynasty Points. Remember that clear eyes and full hearts can never lose. Your best days are always spent tilted.